Having that beauty and that inspiration and the activity and the hope, if you tie all of them in, I mean, I know young people that could use that, let alone seniors. And if you want hope, be a gardener in Calgary, because a lot of it is cross your fingers and hope.
If there's one thing horticulturalist Colin Hayles loves more than gardening, it's sharing his knowledge of gardening. In this Unison TV story, Colin tells us why gardening gives so many older adults a sense of hope and purpose. Whether it's a backyard garden or a balcony planter, Colin shares tips on how to adapt to changing mobility and changing spaces. But first, we start with some personal gardening stories to get us growing.
It's fun, so I'm enjoying it.
I'm not a gardener.
Okay.
My husband was the gardener. Mm-hmm. He left me with a huge garden that I tried to maintain for years because just, in deference to all the time that he'd spent in the yard, but it got to be too much. It was very big. He had like 20 flower beds, and I was, overwhelmed. I love gardens, but I don't love the gardening, so to speak.
It was a little too
much. It was way too much. I think it makes you happy when you go out and you look and you see some bright colors and flowers and birds and things. And we get a lot of squirrels where I am. And if they don't dig anything up, then that's a bonus. but no, it's I think it's nice, especially for people my age. We've got time on our hands, and you feel like you should be doing something to make your life a little bit more enjoyable anyway, rather than just sit around and not make the most of the time you have. I'll get a few pots and colorful things that make it look a little bit more like summer outside. Anyway.
All right, Ralph, can you tell me a little bit about what you like about gardening?
It gets me outside. I like to see things grow. So I don't have a huge yard, so I have to compromise sometimes. But some things will not grow here, no matter what I do. Maybe you can do better, but some things just don't want to grow.
Like what?
Well, corn is a challenge. I did grow it last year, but I wouldn't say I had a lot of success. I just grow what I like to eat,
That's a good reason. What else do you love about gardening?
Well, it should be good exercise, but at my age, sometimes the exercise is a little bit more than I can handle, but I'm going to stick to it.
Honestly, it goes back to my dad. One of my earliest core memories, I was about 3 years old, and I was in the garden back in England planting onions with my dad. And I think I probably was more hindrance than help, but he never ever stopped me from being there. He gave me a love of nature. He taught me plants and bugs, and really encouraged it. And then it was just kind of fell into it, and things came up this way, and now here I am. I always saw it as one of those maybe few hobbies, pastimes that broaches every generation. Because I started when I was 3, and my mum was gardening up until the time she passed away. Gardening, she loved it, and as she got older, she did less, but she still wanted to be hands-on, and that's what I love about gardening and plants. It doesn't matter if you're planting 100 vegetables and growing 2 acres of lawn, or if you have one little house plant. Either way, you're connecting, and there's something you can do, regardless of age, mobility, or whatever. And I find that, you talk about all the other hobbies, and some of them are a young man's game, an old man's game. It's for everybody across the board. Yeah. Most guys are all about the grass and the trees and the food. I'm all about my flowers. I love my flowers. I love blooms. They make me happy. And my mom loved them too. And I used to love every spring. She would water and go, and it was just, there's a bond. And again, that's a generational thing. I bonded with my dad when I was 3, and I bonded with my mom when I was 50. So that's where you see the connections.
What advantages are there, do you think, for older adults to be out there in the garden?
I mean, Looking at my mom and various clients, I used to do a lot of landscaping, helping customers here. It is so multifaceted, and that's what I think really reaches across so much, because you know, you've got some older people, some seniors who could outwork me in the garden. They're active and they're going. We also have some with more limited mobility, like my mum, closer to the end of her life. But there's everything coming into, you know, a lot of times seniors might not be able to be as active through the winter, the bad weather and the cold and the snow and the ice. And then they come in here in the spring and there's flowers and there's bird song and there's perennials and they can talk to people. So I find that very good for the soul, the mental aspect of it. And then outside, it doesn't matter if you're doing one little window box or if you're out in the garden, you're moving, you're getting sunlight, you're getting fresh air. There was a study done by a university in Germany, actually, and they found that direct contact, not wearing gloves, direct contact, skin in soil, releases healthy dopamines and endorphins through it actually helps us heal. So you take all of that, and I know especially, and you know, I'll cite the one I was closest to, which is my mom. During the winter, she didn't get depressed, but she was down, sitting in the same four walls, watching TV, going to the grocery store. Didn't really have that. But in the spring and in the summer, she could get out and she could water some plants, and she could go out and she could pick some flowers, and she could go out and she could look at her garden, and she could call me and be like, what's happening here? Or can you help me with this? And she could plan and she could look to the future. And I think having that beauty and that inspiration and the activity and the hope, if you tie all of them in, I mean, I know young people that could use that, let alone seniors. Yeah, I mean, that's one. And if you want hope, be a gardener in Calgary, because a lot of it is cross your fingers and hope. But it's relevant because gardening is not an exact science. I've been doing it for over 3 decades, and absolutely, I can do everything right and the plant still won't grow. Maybe it's a genetic thing. Plants are alive. They have DNA. They have genetics. Maybe it was damaged and I didn't see it. So having that hope and that aspiration, and am I going to harvest my herbs? Am I going to get my tomatoes? What am I going to do? It gives us that next step to look forward to, which a lot of times can be lacking in our lives, you know. I know some young kids. My kid is 19. And I know some of his friends, they've graduated school and they don't know what they're going to do with their lives. They don't know school, work. They're in that brilliant but awkward stage. And I see them, and every time I see them, be it a week or a couple of weeks, they're diminishing because they don't have anything to look forward to. And I'm telling them, guys, get out there, walk dogs, volunteer, skateboard, do something. And it's the same. We need to have, I believe, that goal, something tangible that we can always hope and work towards.
With the older adults, are there ways that we can adapt gardening for people, say, with less mobility?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It may be something as simple as looking into using more containers. Now, containers might mean less perennials, but your perennials are in your garden. Let somebody else look after them. Containers, you can put them on tables so you don't have to kneel or bend. There's less weeding. Maybe pivot. Maybe you've done water-soluble fertilizers. That means lifting hoses or watering cans. Maybe you go with granular, time release, so you can still fertilize. You can still have an active part in the growing, but you're not lugging around 10-liter watering cans filled with it. We have a new product here called Root Around, and it's a deep watering system for, there's spikes, there's tomato cages and everything, and they have a wide opening at the top. So if you don't have very good mobility, or you're worried about having to bend over to water, or maybe you're a little shaky holding the watering can, you can put the spout of the watering can on the tube and just tip, and all of the water goes to the roots. So there's a number of tools and approaches and ways you can look at it where you can absolutely still garden and do all of the fertilize, deadhead, harvest, water, all of that. You just have to pivot what you can do.
And how about smaller spaces? Because I'm assuming there's a lot of people that are downsizing and
Yep.
moving into smaller places. Does that mean they have to give up their garden?
I love small space gardening. So I have a deck, and my deck has no garden around it. It's kind of built into the house. So 3 sides are surrounded by the house, and one side kind of looks out at a hedge. And it's very private and it's beautiful, lots of sunlight, but there's no garden. My garden is on the other sides. You better believe that covered in plants. Sometimes we can't move. I had a tomato plant a couple of years ago in I think it was about a 5-gallon container, about that big. It was 8 foot tall, and we were eating fresh strawberries from June until the frost killed it. I grew a 10-foot tall sunflower in a 2-gallon pot, cucumbers in a window box, strawberries in hanging planters. There is so much you can do, because when we think of a traditional garden, we have the tendency, we think 2-dimensional, we think flat space, what am I doing here? When we think small space, we need to think 3D. Can I put a trellis and hang things on it? What can I hang from the eaves? What can I put here? Can I put a window box somewhere? Can I line the balcony with window boxes? So there's so many different ways that we can combine to do it. And I don't do perennials in containers, they won't make it through the winter. But flowers, veggies, Jenny, my wife, loves her herbal teas. So every year I do her a teapot, and I make a big plant pot, and I put chamomile, mint, lemon balm, and lavender in it. And then she harvests it, dries it, and she makes her own tea. So she has a teapot. I do other herbs. I let some things go to flower just for the pollinators. There are so many ways you can use a small space and make it private and make it your own. And that's applicable for sun or shade. That is not the barrier. The barrier is what can you take on? So I did the sunflower years ago, and I told my friend, Brandy, she's my podcast co-host, and Brandy was like, no way. And I was like, yeah, and I couldn't find the picture, and she's like, you have to do it again. So I did it again just to prove that I could do it, and we took some pictures. But really, yeah, just try. You've got nothing. If it doesn't work, I guarantee, don't try everything new, but one year go, I'm going to try a tomato or a sunflower. But stick with your petunias or your begonias, sun or shade. And if one doesn't work, you've still got all the beauty of the rest. Just last night, I did a seniors group at St. Luke's Church. On Friday, I'm doing another seniors group. Can't remember where it is. Thank God I put it in my calendar. I did the Hillhurst Go-Getters. That's a senior group. And it's so fun because, again, you've got that whole spectrum of people that want to know what they can do in their condo, and people that want to know what they can do on their balcony, and people that are still working a full garden. And it's so fun because I can take for granted. I have an education in this, and I've got decades of experience, and I work with some amazing people. And I can take for granted that, well, how does everybody not know this? Like, I've been doing this for years. And then I realize that people don't. So sharing that knowledge and inspiring and encouraging, there's nothing better for me than to have somebody tell me that I've demystified or encouraged them to garden, that they tried something and they were somewhat successful. That's the biggest compliment I can ever get.
Speaking of that and passing knowledge on, do you find that you sometimes get information from older adults?
Oh, so I'm not Calgarian.
Yeah.
At all, and I love hearing the stories from some of the older Calgarians that I meet about what they used to grow and how much land they had, and some of the things that you can grow here that you might not expect. How they used to get, like literally that composted manure didn't come in a fancy bag from a garden center. It came from Farmer Joe up the road there. And hearing all of that and listening to that holistic approach to gardening and what they used to do. I remember my grandparents and they...
Is this in UK?
Yeah, back in England, in Newcastle. And this was after World War II, so everything was rationed. You absolutely weren't getting fertilizer. That was all going to the farms because they had to get food production back online. So I was born in 1974, and I remember it would have been late 70s. And my granddad always made tea the proper way, no tea bags, tea leaves. And he used to keep his tea leaves. I never understood why. My parents used tea bags and tossed them in the compost. He would keep his tea leaves and he would press them hard and then re-pour water on them, let them seep again, cool down, and that was what he used for fertilizer because tea has a natural nitrogen in it. And he couldn't get fertilizer and he needed his garden to do good. So that's what he would do. Now that is something I've had and learned from him is lost. People don't know that kind of stuff. So you get that knowledge and you go, oh wow, and now I get to share that with my kid. So getting those tips and tricks and lessons and life lessons from older people, I do my best to pass that on. Last year, my kid gardened for the first time without me. He had questions. He absolutely had me on speed dial. But not once did I physically put hands on his garden. He did it all himself, and he did great. And he was using tips and tricks that I taught him, that I learned from older people, that I learned from my dad. And we've been gardening for hundreds of years. We've been growing for thousands of years. And the fact that now we keep refining and making it better, but really we're reinventing the wheel.
Right.
But some of the basic fundamental building blocks, they don't go away. And that's, you don't need every best. I still have gardening tools like in my garage that I use every year that I got from my dad. Okay, I don't know where he got them, but I've got them, and someday my kid will have them. And that's what it's all about. And we pass down the tools and the knowledge and the love and the experience, and the gardens keep growing.
We had a newbie gardener. What advice would you give them to someone who's never wanted to try it and would an older person that would like to maybe try it, a little intimidated?
Ask for help. If and when things die, don't blame yourself. It's a learning curve. And start small with proven winners. You have an area that is full sun, it's blazing hot, and you want to splash a color, do a pot of marigolds, because nothing kills the gardening buzz faster than having everything die. A few years ago, I talked to a younger couple. They just bought their first house, and they came in here and they wanted to buy 40 tomatoes, and they were gung-ho. Now, it's my job to sell. And I said, oh no, you want 2. And they said, no, we want 40. And I said, okay, here's what happened. You'll buy 40, they'll die because you have no idea how much work it is. They will get bugs, they will get disease. You don't know how much fertilizer you need. You get 2, we can manage that. You will be successful and fall in love. Next year, do 4. Next year, do 8. I can get you to 40, but we're not starting at 40. I saw them in the fall and they were like, that was the best advice we ever got. Thank you so much. So it doesn't matter what age you are. It matters the level of the game. Start small, build on success. And there's a reason why I'm here. There's a reason why I do these interviews. There's a reason why I do CBC and a podcast and things like that. It's because I love to encourage. If I haven't made it abundantly obvious during this interview, the secret with gardeners isn't getting them talking, it's getting them to shut up. So if you have a question, ask. There's not one person I know in the gardening world that will make you feel bad. In fact, they will celebrate that you're trying and help you. In fact, most of them will be like, why don't you take this? I've got stuff at home I'll give you. And that's what it's all about. So don't be intimidated. To get started, you need a pot, some soil, some flowers, and a way to water them, and that's it. There isn't a barrier for entry. As you get bigger, I didn't start with 60 pots and getting 150 pounds of tomatoes a year. That wasn't my starting point. That's where I am now. So we all have to start somewhere. I promise you, it is worth it. You will enjoy it. You'll get. Everybody I know who started gardening, one of the guys who works here, wasn't a gardener, didn't really care for it. One year he wanted to try tomatoes. I helped him, I encouraged him, I got him there. He started harvesting his first tomatoes. Back in March, he was talking to me, okay, this year I want to try this combination and I want to do this. And I'm thinking maybe some hot peppers. And I'm like, bring it on. Let's do it.